นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะทางธัมมังสังฆังกุณุตรังอุปัชฌายังนัมมาสามิ Once upon a time, there's a king, a very handsome king, very vain and proud king. And of course, people flattered him all the time. And they said, "You're as handsome as a deva, more handsome than a deva." And he believed them. And one day he was in his room when there was suddenly most beautiful light filled the whole room. And there were these two devas come to visit. And they said, "We've come to see whether you're really as handsome as a deva." And he said, "What do you think?" Quite confident. So we'll come back a bit later and tell you. And they disappeared. They had other deva business to attend to. And came back some hours later. And they appeared in this beautiful golden light. They're all gold and golden skin, and golden smile, and they said, "We've come back to tell you what we think." And he said, "What do you? Well, am I as handsome and beautiful as a deva?" And they said, "Yeah, you're getting there, but you're not quite as handsome as you were this morning." And he said, "What? How could there be a difference? Just a few hours?" They said, "Oh yes, we can see the difference, and so we'll prove it to you. Bring order your sharpest and most intelligent and observant minister or advisor to come here with a dish, should be a golden dish of pure water," which he does. And the advisor puts down the dish of water, and devas tell him to go outside for a moment. And then one of the devas takes out this, in his golden robes, he has a golden spoon, a little golden pouch, and he takes out the golden spoon from the golden pouch from under his golden robes and the golden light, and he takes a small spoonful of water from the dish. And then the advisor returns to the room, and the deva says, "Look very closely at that big dish of water. Can you see any difference in it?" And the advisor looked and looked and looked, and he said, "No, I see no difference." And the devas looked at the king, and the king looked at the deva, and the king said, "Oh, now I understand." So the change the change from this morning is like subtracting just a small spoonful from a big dish of water. It's almost invisible to the human eye, but to the devas who have this very special supervision, that was very clear, and they could see the aging process in the king, and the king realized, yes, although I cannot subjectively experience the aging process, it's taking place every single moment of every single day. And so the story says that he changed his ways and became much less vain about his appearance, and eventually became a monk. So if you become a monk at the end of, that's called a happy ending for a monk story, you see. So these are all, this old story, about how relentless the passing of time, and we're not only are we unable to perceive it as it's occurring, but we do our best to not to perceive it. And the amount of time and attention and money people spend on trying to conceal the aging process is incredible. And it's something that goes back through history, of course. If you know if anyone's ever looked at the history of cosmetics, for example, and one of the most favorite chemicals used for face, and like arsenic and mercury and lead. Until quite these make the skin become whiter. Until quite recently in Thailand, I finally banned them. That some of these creams, like whitening creams, have mercury in them. And there are stories of women who would put these mercury creams on their face, and they get the desired effect, but it also has a really terrible impact on their internal organs and the skin itself. And the skin starts to go sort of scaly and horrible, and so they put more mercury to conceal that, which makes it worse, and then they die. But how in every culture, how difficult it is for us to accept this simple truths of aging, sickness, and death. And in many cultures, it's taboo even to talk about these things, or to talk about old age and death. It's like in English we say, "Oh, that's morbid." Morbid means don't talk about that. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But in Buddha Dhamma, we say we need to look at and come to terms with our mortality and the nature of this body and the nature of this mind. And when we do that, we see all kinds of contradictory, conflicting thoughts and values in our mind. And we start to just make everything come into line. so often we're able to maintain conflicting beliefs and values and just switch from one to the other without really realizing and making compartments in our minds. And we're very good at lying to ourselves and in the Thai idiom, it's like taking our side in any kind of debate, or my siding, I think, has even got a modern word for this. So I say meditation is one part of this effort to align ourselves with the simple truths of life. We're not adopting dogmas and unprovable beliefs. Quite the opposite. The Buddha's teaching is santittika. Santittika means it's something which is provable. The Buddha's giving us, we can compare to hypothesis and saying, life is like this, is it? The Buddha doesn't want us to accept it blindly, but he wants us to take the teachings away and put them to the test. So although the teachings are all ultimately verifiable and falsifiable, they are not all verifiable or falsifiable to everyone at any time and place, because and it's not a difficult concept to understand. We can compare it with science. You say you have to have a scientific education before you can put the more abstruse scientific concepts and theories to the test. It's not that anybody can do it. So we need to create the conditions for us to be able to verify the truth of the Buddha's teachings. And the mind of the untrained person is not strong enough to do that. And this is one of the first and most, I think, kind of sobering insights that can come when we start to practice meditation. And that's just how completely out of control our mind is. And for example, think of the person that is most important to you in your life, parent or spouse or child. And how can you create an image of them in your mind? Probably yes. And how long can you sustain that in your mind? How long can you keep your mind on something which is so important to you? Very difficult, and not more than a few seconds. And we're so caught up in our minds and all the stories and the dramas, the soap operas in our mind. And our default, our usual thing is to consider these all as being me and mine. And that phrase, me and mine, in many ways, I would say is synonymous as to the word dukkha. You say, wherever there is the sense of me and mine, there is dukkha. And wherever me and mine does not appear, there's no dukkha. The thinking mind. Okay, we're just now talking about the body, and it's not so difficult to accept. Yes, it's getting
older every breath, every moment. It's not so easy to recognize, but you see someone that you haven't seen for a year or two or some time, and they've got older, and then if you're not keeping precepts, you say, "Oh, you don't change." No, neither do you. And but you recognize, just little by little. So with the body, it's not quite so threatening, is it? The sense, the body is just doing its thing. But with the mind, then we do tend to attach to that much more. And yet it's, I think, more rational to attach to the body in many ways. It's like the thinking mind. Say, can you predict what you'll be thinking in an hour's time? Why not? Why can't you just say in an hour's time, I just sort of think about this and think about that? What about in 5 minutes' time? What about 5 seconds' time? What's the next thought that's going to appear in your mind? The very next thought that's going to occur in your mind. What is it? You don't know. That's how out of control it is. And the rational part of our mind, the predictable part of our mind, is just one of a kind of host of voices. It's just one part of the mind, isn't it? This is why, could say that, mainstream economic theories, are based upon a very unrealistic understanding of human beings and how human beings make decisions. And the more you look at the mind, and you can see there are no guarantees, but you create conditions. This is something that you can observe. And so you say, well, I don't know what's going to pop up in my mind even in the next second. But if you've been training your mind consistently, then you can be quite confident that whatever the content of it, it won't be a thought of hurting somebody or of anger and aversion, because the mind has been trained and the mind has developed certain habits. So it's not 100% sure. If someone's not yet reached a stage of enlightenment, it's still sensual and angry and cruel thoughts can pop up into the mind, but there's no purchase for them. There's nothing for them to take any grip on. They just slip away from the mind. The mind doesn't give any ground. It doesn't give any welcome to those thoughts anymore. So this is what sanditiko means, that you observe that by applying certain principles and practicing in a certain way, that the mind changes, and you can change your conduct almost immediately. Changing the mind takes much longer. So the body and the mind can compare maybe to two different kinds of watercraft. So the mind is like a small kayak or canoe. You can just move so quickly and can turn around or revolve around. It's very changeable. inconstant, whereas the body is more like an oil tanker. That's why if there's a strong emotion in the body, then even if you let go of the thinking, then it doesn't mean that the emotion is going to disappear, because the emotion is being manifested in the body, and physical changes in the body of adrenaline and cortisol, those things. And so if you are not also applying some remedy to the body, calming the body, then the chemicals and the changes in the body which are still present will tend to stimulate another round of thinking. So, it's an interesting question. What is an emotion, anyway? I don't think there's real consensus on that, and there's not a one Pali word which corresponds to emotion. My own idea of this is that certain mental states have very clearly defined physical counterparts, like patterns of arousal in the body. And when there is a predictable combination of thought and physical arousal, then we could call that an emotion. So dealing with emotion, to be able to deal with both sides, the thinking side and the physical side. This is something from observation. Okay, we don't have to read a book of Abhidhamma or study Buddhist psychology. That's not to say we're rejecting out of hand the value of those things, but what we're trying to do is coming to our experience. And when you read books of Buddhist psychology, sometimes they can seem quite intimidating and difficult. And yet, when you come down to your experience of your body and your mind right now, and you try to articulate what exactly is going on, whether it's to yourself or somebody else, it's, that's what that book means. It's like, and often the language used makes it seem far more difficult to understand than the experience itself. So we're trying to create conditions where we can learn from experience. And what is it that we want to learn? We want to learn the Four Noble Truths. And to pursue this analogy further, then the present moment is the classroom. Okay, so we have to enter the classroom of the present moment in order to fully comprehend and understand, learn about the Four Noble Truths. So there's no great mystic value of being in the present moment per se, but the present moment is a necessary precondition to be fluent and to be comfortable and content in the present moment. That's necessary to be able to really look very closely and deeply at what exactly is going on. For example, what is dukkha? How is dukkha conditioned by craving? How does dukkha diminish or disappear with the diminution, disappearance of craving? How does sila work? How does samadhi work? How does panya work? All these things we are learning and understanding more and more. And the experience is a little bit like realizing you've been looking out of the windscreen of a vehicle, which is very dirty, and a lot of the things that you thought were there were actually distortions that disappear when the windscreen becomes clearer. I say, oh, that's that. Oh, that's that. It's not like you're doing anything. It's just you're realizing what's what. Now we say this in English. You know what's what, and this is meditation. Is learning how to know what's what. So we apply effort to meditation object, and then we see what happens. It's and then we begin to understand these like the nivaranas, or called the hindrances. These are habits of mind that have a lot of power in our lives, but that without meditation it's very difficult to capture or to recognize as defilements, as things which are upsetting and distorting and sullying the mind. As I say, because our habit, our instinct is to consider ourselves the owners of everything that goes on in our mind. And so there's just this flow of mental states and feelings and perceptions and thoughts, and we're just sort of carried along by this. So now we're not going with the flow, we're going against the flow and seeing what happens. So when you try to sustain tension on an object, then the mind, which is familiar with and comfortable with movement and change and stimulation, will feel stressed and will try to escape from that. That's the natural reaction. And the favorite way of escaping from reality is into pleasant mental states. So distraction, in other words. And understanding how distraction works and what leads to distraction. Again, not as a theory, but you watch in your own mind. So that movement towards, this is also called chanda. So the word chanda it's a neutral term. As it manifests in an unwholesome sense, it's that the movement towards the will towards the pleasant. When that energy is educated, it becomes the will towards goodness or the will towards Dhamma. But as a hindrance, it's movement towards the pleasant. It's like in the Peanuts cartoon, Linus, he has his blanket. This is what Dhamma is. We all have our little blanket that we want to take hold of when we feel uncomfortable or bored, or that the present moment is not enough. I want something else. I want something reassuring, something warm and pleasant and exciting, and depends on the mood. So in daily life, then that's probably going to manifest in some physical action, reaching for your phone or for social media, or going to the fridge, or or going on a shopping website or something like that. So it's like just a hit of pleasure, but that's what we want. That's our way to deal with dukkha. A hit of pleasure, just to forget it for a while. And if we are sitting cross-legged on the floor, on a chair, or whatever, then we've taken that option off the table. We're not going to be looking for something to eat or something to play with or some enjoyment. But we do have memory and imagination which can provide us that same kind of pleasurable hit. And this is what becomes clear to us in meditation, how we do this, how addicted we are to this way of dealing with our experience. And we can see the kind of things that the mind is drawn to. And there's a whole wide spectrum, so from the coarser kinds of distraction, and most powerful and coarsest, like sexual fantasies and thoughts. It's an immediate, very strong distraction. But the Kama Chanda is not restricted to those coarser physical sensations and memories, but anything that you like, you enjoy, innocent pleasures. Or it might be memories of pleasant experiences and music and theatre, movies, holidays, conversation, anything at all which is you like. It's kind of a nice place to hang out. It's just a comfortable place just to be for a while. This is a refuge, in other words. We're taking refuge in memories, or we're taking refuge in imagination and fantasies, something that we're drawn towards, that the mind inclines towards. Why? Because there is discontent with the present experience. So there is dukkha in the mind. If there wasn't, if the mind was content, why would you leave and go off and look for something else? Because another option, very popular option, is negativity, and that's not so obviously pleasant, but it's really addictive, and particularly when you have some kind of unfinished business. It's kind of like an itch, something somebody did or something somebody said, and then just a moment, the thought of that person and the way that they showed disrespect or contempt, or they did or said something, then your mind is just reborn in the whole kind of realm of anger and heat and self-righteousness. And that there's an energy, an addictive energy in that, isn't there? And because we want to think of ourselves as kind of rational beings generally, then can also, that negative energy can take for its object things and people around us. It's like anger looking for an object. And can be the way that people around us walk, the way they sit down, the way they stand up, the way they just the smallest. It's it's comical in a way, sad but comical, to the degree with which that negative mind will find some pretext and some reason to feel negative. And it shouldn't be like this. It's, why is it like this? And why is it like that? Why are they like that? It's just upset. And then, or it's focused on yourself. That's a really favorite one as well. And you have these very toxic phrases. The degree to which people allow these toxic ideas into their mind without any recognition of what they're doing, it's shocking. Number one, I'll give you an example. My favorite one right now is, I'm not good enough. This is just such a bizarre, weird kind of thought when you think about it. What does it mean? It's a difficult. So to my view, you say, I'm not good enough. You say it has to be specific. Again, I'm not a good enough swordsman to make the Olympic fencing team. I'm not. I don't sing well enough and dance well enough to make it in a boy band or something like that. So you have particular kind of criteria and particular standards, and you say, right now, I know I don't fulfill those standards. So, and then that's quite reasonable way of saying, yeah, I'm not a good enough cook to work in a cordon bleu restaurant or something like that. But when you have this idea as I'm not good enough, it's just like, what does that mean? There's this kind of floating inadequate me. And then every time there's a failure, or every time you are not able to get what you want or do what you want, then, oh, yeah, that's me, I'm not good enough. And it's a virus. That's all it is. It's a meaningless phrase that enters the human mind and distorts experience. It's not based on any solid ground at all. So I know what. So I was talking to someone about this, so trying to explain what I meant by that, and I was saying one of my favorite exercises. You may have probably heard me say this before. Is when there's something that seems really real to you, and somebody else says, that's rubbish. Then imagine that there's a highly intelligent gas from another universe or another planet or whatever, and it's come to visit. It's doing a survey on the human race, and you're being interviewed, and this kind of green, I think it probably green gas, and it's sparkly a little bit, and then it doesn't speak, but you know what it means. It says, I hear you think you're not good enough. Can you please explain that to me? And just imagine trying to explain what that means to an intelligent and charismatic green cloud of gas. I don't think you'll be able to do it. Whereas if you say, I'm not good enough at playing the clarinet to join a symphony orchestra, yes, I think you could probably explain that. So this is a good test, and one of the principles always is, if something is true and meaningful, the closer you look at it, the clearer it becomes. If something is false, it's one of these kind of viral concepts and something that has no basis in reality, the closer you look at it, the less clear it becomes. You see, I think that's a very good standard. So to be able to look at things closely, the mind has to be able to sustain attention. You have to have a stable mind. And that's why I keep coming back to the meditation object again and again and again, developing power of directing the mind and sustaining the mind and bearing something in mind with that clear comprehension of wakefulness, to the extent that you can just be there and you're not reacting to things that arise through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So you are with samadhi. It's more, can say, anesthetizing this tendency just to grasp onto something that's pleasant and to push away something which is unpleasant. So that's not kind of like something you intend to do. Okay, it's something just happens. Something pleasant and you grasp onto it, something unpleasant, you push it away. And as long as you're doing that, you can't really understand that thing clearly. So before you can really understand something and find some freedom from attachment to it, you need to be able to stabilize your attention span. And this is why, hard as it may be, and just sometimes it can be pleasant, sometimes not, but when you just keep doing this work, every time you do it, it's meaningful. It has a consequence. You're accumulating this energy of this power of focus, and you are strengthening the mindfulness muscle, and you're learning to stand in the middle, in the midst of phenomena with their tempting and their frightening or their exciting or all their different qualities, and to be unmoved and to see things for what they are. And in the suttas, there are many cases with Mara. It's like Mara's kind of like the satanic figure, and Mara dresses up as in various different ways, and all these kind of disguises. It's going to fool the Buddha. And the Buddha's sitting there, and the Buddha says, it's really cool. It says, "I see you, Mara." And Mara says, yeah, it's like a cartoon in a way, but the psychological truth there is the Buddha doesn't have to contend with Mara, doesn't have to fight Mara off, and simply to see Mara as Mara, and that's the Buddha knowing. When you develop this stability of mind, there's something is really tempting you to follow it, tempting you to towards lust and greed or anger and aversion or depression. You realize it's Mara. You say, "I see you, Mara." Hello, Mara. So and that's the quality of mind that we're trying to develop. We're not going to be in a world where there are no temptations and there are no pressures and there are not things which are inviting fear and anxiety and so on. Those things are always going to be there. The particular manifestations and of the particular events and people and so on, which are going to bring up these situations, they're going to change all the time. But this sense of stability of mind and clarity of vision and seeing things, oh, I see you, Mara. This is timeless, and this is something that every one of us can develop. So I'd like to end the talk at this point.
Andamayan Dhammakatha Sadhu Karang Tathamase Sadhu Sadhu